How's everyone? Let's begin with world news. Well, what you see here would be part of telecommunications according to the reports. According to what has been shown on different social networks, an area on a hill over there in Caracas, was reportedly destroyed, which is used for antennas for communication in official matters. Well, these are some of the images that have been shown in recent moments. Also, there are a series of movements taking place. Right now, we're going to talk about what's happening over there in Iran, and obviously we'll be discussing that situation as well. Another one of the reports. Another situation they're mentioning is that President Maduro, according to what is known, or the former president, no. This person, this dictator, well, he would have already arrived in New York, according to what is known, right? This person. The former Venezuelan leader just landed at Stewart International Airport in New York, in Orange County, where they say he will be put on trial. Well, more details already. The evidence that has come up is evidence that comes from Chavez, evidence that Chavez himself had, evidence about Maduro, and that has been accumulating over the years. Evidence, by the way, that in part Mexican authorities had reportedly passed on to the United States about what Maduro was doing. Mexican authorities from previous governments, according to what was indicated at that time. Since that time, it was known that official Venezuelan planes were being used to transport drugs to the United States. Among other things, also money and other matters. The number of charges against Maduro right now is so high, and the evidence has piled up to such a level that more or less, if he pleads guilty, he'd face 20 to 30 years in prison. If he tries to defend himself and say that he wasn't the one, that he didn't do anything, etc., etc., it could drag on, but he could get a life sentence. Thank you for watching. The situation is getting more complicated for this character and also for his wife, since there is also data, there is information that starts to reveal things more clearly, in which Maduro's own wife would be in charge of commissions and prices when carrying out this kind of trafficking. So well, this is starting to take on more weight. Besides, more charges will be added in the coming hours, which will be announced by the United States authorities. Pay attention because this is growing. I mean, look, there's an issue that could be strategic, it could be real, but only time will tell. But according to what the United States government says, even Vice President Delcy Rodriguez herself was part of those negotiating with the United States. The fall of Maduro? Obviously, if this were the case, Donald Trump couldn't say it because obviously saying it would also mean there will be betrayals within the regime. I mean, come on, if they say, you know what? Well, your traditional one is mature, so then you would also be in trouble, right? With Diosdado, with Padrino, etc. From Venezuela, what Delcy Rodriguez says is that, well, it's an attempt at colonialism, that the empire, you know, the whole narrative is classic, right? In which she accuses the United States of having done something illegal in Venezuela. And obviously here there is a situation where there are a series of controversies that, well, will surely go around the whole world. But, controversies or not, in Maduro's regime, at least Nicolas Maduro's, well, he would have fallen in the regime, probably not yet. The satellite images right now are also starting to show a series of damages at some points in a military complex there in Tuna. No, these are images that, well, are starting to be reported, right? That's the before now, that's the after already, with affected areas, with destroyed areas in that fort. There's the before. Let's see if I can put it on the screen. There's the before. According to the satellite image from Vandor, where it shows the before and then the after, that area is completely destroyed. Those complexes in Fort Tuna, military complexes that, according to the images from Vandortech, it would be this publication that would show images where there is significant damage in large sections of the Fort Tuna military complex in the southern suburbs of the Venezuelan capital, Caracas. So it would surely show it. They report at least 5 warehouses completely destroyed in the nighttime attack operation by the United States. Wouldn't there not only be someone close within the group, Trump's inner circle, who would be giving information to the CIA? But also supposedly Delcy Rodriguez would have agreed to, let's say, help with the transition. On the other hand, also in the same statements where there are still contradictions, Donald Trump claims that the United States will govern during the transition. There's also talk of a possibility that Delcy Rodriguez could become president, 1 month to call for elections. Elections are called, and then everything else gets done, right? There's still a lot of chaos and uncertainty about what's coming. Let's discuss some details. Donald Trump confirmed today that the United States Special Forces captured the president. Well, the president and dictator of Venezuela and his wife, Celia Flores, are both being taken to New York to face drug trafficking charges. According to what Trump says, without giving clear details on how he claims the United States is going to manage or govern Venezuela until the change or transition happens. He assured it will cost nothing since Venezuelan oil will fund the reconstruction, meaning what's happened in Venezuela will be rebuilt. It will be funded by the oil, and they say it will be fast. Now, during this surprising turn, Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro's vice president, became interim president in Caracas, strongly rejecting United States intervention and demanding proof that Maduro is alive. Trump shares on Trump's social the image of Maduro handcuffed, which has already circulated globally. We've already shown it here. But within this, there's another message in which, well, he says the following. This is Delcy Rodriguez giving the following comment on local television.
The only president of Venezuela. From here, we demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores. The only president of Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro. Here is the most important high command of the Venezuelan state, the military high command, the high command of the state, the high command of the Council of Vice Presidents. All the political factors of national power in Venezuela are united, but also in the streets of Venezuela. There is a people who have become active in response to a call that had already been made by the President of the Republic and which he warned about if something were to happen to President Nicolas Maduro. The people are out on the streets, activated, and the group of militants at their workplaces are also activated.
Well, part of the message given by Delcy Rodriguez, who continues to refer to Maduro as president, does she still call him that? That's also part of what's happening. It has also been seen according to the images that have been circulating from Vice Pacheco, this Venezuelan journalist and writer who shows this image of Vladimir. Padrino comes out of a meeting with Delcy Rodriguez at the vice presidency. There goes Padrino leaving that place at that moment. Obviously, this movement also draws attention, the one they're talking about, where Padrino and Delcy Rodriguez are coming to an agreement with the vice president still in office. Now, another thing that also stands out in all this is the image of Donald Trump in this place. This is the war room, let's say, the war room, where they put up some curtains, just simple curtains, and from there they were operating. From there, they were watching some images on the screen. All night they were watching live how the situation was unfolding, how this attack was happening. Among the comments made a few moments ago, it was mentioned several times, both by Trump, by Pete Cassidy himself, and by Marco Rubio himself. They insisted that there were several opportunities for negotiation or attempted negotiation to avoid having to resort to the use of force with Maduro, but Maduro always stalled, always said yes, but never said when. And well, time went by, and that's when the United States itself got involved in the operation. Now, among the cars being made, they're not the only ones that will be sent after Maduro. They'll also try to detain Diosdado and Padrino and others who are supposedly involved in the whole trafficking issue. And beyond the fact that a lot is known about them, there are many situations from years ago about how trafficking has been operating from the Venezuelan government. Beyond this evidence that has existed for some time, the issue is that even more serious accusations could come up at any moment. They still haven't wanted to bring those up. We'll see about that later on. The image of Maduro, apparently it's posed, and it would be this one. The image shows him wearing glasses, probably to avoid them being completely dark, right? Basically, so he can't see anything and also so he can't hear anything. Doesn't he have some kind of those noise-canceling headphones like the ones for airplanes? And there are reports that claim they had to stop first in Puerto Rico because he wasn't feeling well. Maduro wasn't, but he was attended to, and they continued the trip. That also draws attention. A topic that, well, also a situation with Trump, referring to the fact that Corina Machado. And here there are several details that Corina Machado mentions at one point, well, that it can't be yet. Venezuela's leader is kind but lacks national respect. A controversial comment made by Maduro himself, and about which, well, there are several theories. One theory is that they're going to go through the whole election process again, so that the same person comes in with all the credentials, so to speak. Maria Karina. Another possibility is that, well, right now there isn't an agreement with Maria, and that there might be some kind of clash where they don't agree, with the possibility that the government turns to the world. Gonzalez and Maria Corina, there are different theories. For now, well, it says the following. Let's listen to what they have on Monday. It's very difficult for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support.
I think it would be hard for her to be a leader. She's a very kind woman, but she doesn't count.
She doesn't have the respect of the nation.
She doesn't have the respect of the nation, according to what Trump himself says, and this probably caused controversies. The comment that Zelensky makes about this operation in Venezuela also stands out. What President Zelensky says about Maduro. What can I say? If this can be done with dictators, then does the United States know what to do? Well then, it could operate the same way toward Russia. No, well, I'm joking, but anyway, it's part of the comments. Now, another thing is that F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightning F-18 Super Hornet and E-18 Growlers and B-1 Lancer were involved in last night's operation against the Venezuelan capital. At the locations where there were military targets or defense systems, all these aircraft were used in those attacks. That too, well, right now it has already been revealed. More images are also coming out where you can see or hear Venezuelans celebrating and shouting for freedom. Let's listen. By the way, well, the excitement is impressive. The excitement of many regions of Venezuela celebrating, also in other countries, not just Venezuelans, but people in other countries celebrating too. And also, thank you very much for the comments. The number of comments has been impressive. Well, celebrating. Although you also know that a difficult situation is coming, that this isn't over yet, and that for better or worse, many challenges are coming. Definitely, according to what is known right now, the soldiers who were visiting Venezuela have not been able to leave. Let's see if this, well, I know can be handled diplomatically, and if this group of Chinese soldiers is allowed to leave. That also drew attention today. Another issue that has been reported in this regard is that the CIA had infiltrated Maduro's inner circle. The operation relied on key intelligence from a CIA source infiltrated in the Venezuelan government who tracked Maduro's movements. The operation was rehearsed in a replica of a safe house in another region where they practiced. Exactly how was the movement supposed to happen at that moment? Since August, the United States has mobilized warships, drones, and troops from the Caribbean. More than 30 lethal attacks had already been carried out against vessels allegedly linked to Venezuelan drug trafficking. Russia, China, and Colombia called for an urgent United Nations Security Council meeting to address what Caracas calls imperialist aggression and sovereignty violations. That's what Venezuela itself says. Attorney General Pambondi also confirmed that more serious criminal charges will be added to those already proposed. And it will also depend a lot on the cooperation, the information that Maduro reveals on how tough justice will be or if this matter will be handled more leniently. It will be very interesting to see what Maduro himself might report in that regard. This matter would obviously be important. In all this and the situation, this image is shown where they display the map. What were the attacks? In which positions did they attack? They were in La Guaira, La Carlota, Fortuna, and Higuerote. These are the 4 main points that were attacked during the attack yesterday or today. Actually, because it was early morning, right? This, according to what the New York Times reports, shows the map where the most significant attacks of this operation were recorded. Another one from the other side, the images as well. What stands out is what Emmanuel Macron says here on his official account, right? He posts it in several languages, including Spanish. It's not dubbed or translated, he just wrote it in Spanish so Venezuelans can read it. It's a message for the Venezuelan people from the French president, Emmanuel Macron. It says the following: the Venezuelan people are now freed from Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship and can only celebrate. I mean, you have to be weird, right? He says. By confiscating power and trampling on fundamental freedoms, Nicolas Maduro has committed a serious affront to the dignity of his own people. The transition that is beginning must be peaceful, democratic, and respectful of the will of the Venezuelan people. We hope President Edmundo González Urrutia, elected in 2024, can ensure this transition quickly. At this moment, I am holding talks with our partners in the region. France is fully mobilized and vigilant, especially to ensure the safety of its citizens in these uncertain times. Well, there you have President Macron's comment. We've already discussed in the previous broadcast the comments from other European presidents and leaders from other countries on this matter. There's also another comment within this statement that caught my attention, which is also from Emmanuel Macron. Here's another post he made about it, and it says the following: I just spoke with Maria Corina. I fully support her call for the release and protection of the political prisoners of Nicolas Maduro's regime. Like all Venezuelans, she can count on the support of France to raise her voice in favor of a peaceful, democratic transition that fully respects the sovereign will of the Venezuelan people. Well, that's another message that Macron is also sending, right? Okay, that's good too. That draws attention. Another situation also important. Among these comments being made, there's a comment from a congressman, Thomas Macy. No, let's go into the details of what Thomas Macy, a congressman in the United States, says, who also makes some pretty strong comments. Let's listen to part of what he says. Let's hear this American politician.
Be found then in the clause which confides the question of war and peace to the legislature and not the executive. Madison called it the crown jewel of Congress. The framers understood a simple truth: to the extent that war-making power devolves to one person, liberty dissolves.
Okay, let's see. Here we go. Here come the comments, right? He says that. In short, Thomas Macy launches a scathing criticism against a possible United States intervention or against this intervention, rather than admitting it would repeat the failures of wars in Iraq, Syria, Libya, and Afghanistan. Republican congressman accuses the Trump administration and previous ones of following the same regime change playbook, this time using drugs as a pretext instead of weapons of mass destruction like Bush used against Iraq at the time. He directly questions the official narrative, pointing out that they have lied before about non-existent threats and that now a new excuse is being built to justify interventions, he says. Behind the operation in Venezuela, it's about oil and regime change, hinting that there are geopolitical and economic interests rather than humanitarian ones. Said by a Republican congressman, so are there also internal divisions? Not everyone agrees on this situation, even within the United States. That's also interesting to try to understand a bit more about how this situation is unfolding. And well, that's what this member of the United States Congress and Donald Trump's party says. He warns of possible military escalation that could cause a massive migration crisis, with millions of Venezuelans seeking refuge in the United States. Well, there you have it. There is distrust, at least from this Republican. He quotes James Madison to support his constitutional argument, reminding us that only Congress, and not the President, has the authority to declare war. And that concentrating that power in the executive is a danger to freedom. Pay attention to what's happening internally with this case, with this situation. Pay attention to this issue because it seems that Donald Trump is also being questioned, even, I insist, by the Republicans themselves. A topic that, I insist, has been criticized by many countries, including France itself, which even though France says it's good that it was tougher. On the other hand, they also criticize the use of force to carry out this action. So there's this kind of mental shock, so to speak. On one hand, it's good because of the fall of this person, but on the other hand, it's bad because of what it could cause in the future. Listen to former Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador as he shares this message on his official account. He hasn't commented in a while, and now says this after retiring from politics. But my libertarian convictions prevent me from staying silent in the face of the arrogant attack on the sovereignty of the people of Venezuela and the kidnapping of their president. Neither Bolívar nor Lincoln would accept the United States government acting as a global tyranny. President Trump, I tell you, don't fall into self-complacency. Don't listen to the siren song, send the hawks to hell. Do you have the ability to act with practical judgment, Don't forget that today's fleeting victory can be tomorrow's crushing defeat. Politics isn't about forcing ideas. Remember that respect for the rights of others is peace, as Benito Juarez taught us in the 19th century. 18, 19, 20, well, I am Mexican with great pride, but also Latin American. I unconditionally support my president, Claudia Sheinbaum. But now I don't send her a hug. I mean, she tells Trump that this time she doesn't send him a hug. That's the comment she makes. And well, that's how things are. That's how it goes. That's how the topic is going. In these reactions that are being given by different leaders from various parts of the world, who have been critical of this situation in different ways. That's also like Meloni, Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, commented on all this, saying that she does not agree with Trump's operation in Venezuela. But at the same time, she also understood the security circumstances that the United States had gotten itself into. Because of Maduro? I mean, I get you, but it's still wrong. I mean, it's like these ambiguous situations that are happening right now in the world. Let's move on to other topics, other important matters as well. We'll talk more about what's happening in Venezuela in a moment, but there are also things happening in other parts of the world that we need to discuss. They're important too. Let's go with that. There are images that are drawing attention right now where you can start to see more chants against, well, the dictators or the dictator they say over there. They even talk about or shout victory to the Shah. In Iran, Iranian protesters against the regime have taken control of the streets in the Hathof area. This is a very blurry image, but here are more images that we will be seeing during the live broadcast. Here are even images with cars. They are protesting in different places in Iran, and we've seen that it's already the 6th or 7th day around there. Reports state that 12 people have already died in the protests. Because of these tensions, where they shout all kinds of things, they say things like death to the dictator, down with the dictator, and even at some moments they shout, long live the Shah. Protests that are spreading in Iran, now in at least 30 locations, have become the scene of growing demonstrations due to the economic crisis. The political demands stand out at first, well, because there were first labor protests, then striking merchants joined in, then students joined in, and that's how it kept growing. All the universities are participating at this moment. Also now the small markets, the market associations, which had always been supportive of the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, are now upset and demanding major changes, even the fall of the supreme leader himself. The protests left 12 people dead, including members of the security forces as well, such as the Revolutionary Guards and Basij militias, who have also been operating in that region. Protesters have shouted death to the dictator. The Pahlavis are coming back, referring to the Pahlavi dynasty that was overthrown in the Islamic Revolution of 79. The universities are mobilizing, and what it now recalls are its historic movements that have shaken the Iranian regime in the past. A protester also lost his life while handling a grenade, which exploded in his hands, according to local media. But there are already groups in Iran that have obtained weapons. And well, this, I insist, could escalate. Today, the Supreme Leader issued a warning in which they claim everything is fine. We accept that there may be protests or discontent, but the situation is not going to be, let's say, zero tolerance for riots, according to what has been reported. In other words, they're going to get tough. According to what it says, they're going to get tough, as mentioned in multiple tweets. Was Khamenei very active on Twitter today, or was it the person who manages his account? He was very active and busy on Twitter. This guy from Vamos, has Khamenei been seen like appearing in public on video or something like that? For now, we'll see if this happens later. But something else that stands out today, let's say, among the heated discussions that are happening. Be careful with that issue. Let's discuss other important topics. According to the reports, this object was observed, an object that was supposedly detected. So up north, in Juarez, Chihuahua, an unusual light was observed. This was yesterday in the sky over Juarez, according to what the images report. Well, they might show a possible rocket. This could be, they think, a rocket, right? Alright, there was talk about whether it's a meteorite or a bolide, but honestly, this looks more like a rocket or something like that. According to reports, the mysterious light was seen in several areas. Some people in Mexico City even told us they saw it, which seemed like a lot to me. Alright, let's see what the community has to say. This would have been on January 2nd. Yesterday, Juarez citizens reported seeing an unusual light steadily cross the sky for several seconds. The images and recordings show the phenomenon starting to circulate on Facebook and Twitter. Witnesses said the object's constant movement fueled speculation about its origin. Similar sightings were also reported in Hermosillo, Sonora, and Zacatecas. Is that true? They claim that this could be related to the SpaceX spacecraft as a probable origin of the phenomenon. The Falcon 9 rocket launched from Vandenberg Base in California could have been visible during stage separation or fuel release. And possibly this would be the situation. There was no risk involved, but the phenomenon certainly caught people's attention in the last few hours. Another matter as well? Another one of these facts that draws attention and is part of the details that are becoming known about the issue of 3 and Atlas. It's not that the comet at this age would be expelling about 13.5 million tons of water. While scientists are trying to figure out the origin, it is now reported that there is a greater amount of water than expected. It's a subject that they say still has a lot to be discovered. There's information that, little by little, I think will gradually be understood. But there is new data from the SOHO probe that revealed that Comet 3 and Atlas is not just a comet or a completely exotic and strange object, because of its behavior, its shape, and a series of anomalies, right? They claim that the object is releasing or experiencing a record rapid loss of water, in which 13.5 million metric tons would have been lost by the object. What stands out is that this loss, according to what they say, should have sublimated or should have decreased. The core hasn't done it. According to the level of activity, it suggests that the core is large, approximately. If this is the case, in order to confirm that it released all that amount of water, the core would have to be tens of kilometers and not 1.4 kilometers to justify this activity. In Soho, the SWAN instrument allowed tracking of hydrogen emissions, a product of the interaction between the solar reaction and the water released by the comet. The chemical level was detected in unusual abundance, and atomic nickel was also detected in a completely anomalous abundance. More information keeps emerging. The team of scientists is led by the Backstroke Listen program. They are also searching for signals to be able to detect and determine whether the previously detected signals were or are attributed to the comet or not to the object. Whatever it is, they are even looking for possible technosignatures that could be credible to show that there might be some kind of intervention from something else. That's a topic that is still being debated, since among many scientists, it's not settled. To try to determine how to explain all the exotic features this object has had, we'll monitor this situation. In the meantime, let's move on to other topics, to other information about what's happening with Maduro, Venezuela, and this whole issue. We're not going with that. What else is happening globally? Thanks for joining our live broadcast. Greetings to Carlos, Benedicto, Leonardo, Niebla, Nieblina, and Niebla Tundra. How have you been? Niblanya, right? Hi, how are you? Very good. And to the whole community that's with us, to all the channel members, thank you very much for supporting us, right? Look, huh? There's more information. I'm sure they'll report it. Maduro was not only captured and taken to the United States and transferred to New York, but they also say that this person will be watched 24 hours a day with all possible security, because the charges are not only drug trafficking but also conspiracy. For having been operating against the United States with different groups, even groups that are enemies of the United States, like Hezbollah and Hamas, which are, by the way, moved. And Iran, that, by the way, could also be inspired by what's happening in Venezuela and say, well, yes, it's possible to make changes, right? Be careful with that issue, because the momentum that could be generated in Iran would also be important. According to what is being reported, the United Nations Security Council, it's going to be very busy in the coming days, since Russia, China, and Colombia are urgently requesting a meeting. And this could happen in the next few days, although confirmation might come in the next few hours. It is reported that in this controversy, there is an ongoing discussion between Congressman Macy, who was mentioned a moment ago by Democratic Senator Andy Kim and other senators. Both Democrats and Republicans are denouncing that Trump acted without authorization from Congress, while Republican John Tan reportedly praised the operation, saying it was decisive. So, there are some Democrats and Republicans who are against it, and other congressmen who would be in favor. But obviously the controversy is in full swing. Let's look at more images of what's happening, of what's going on with the situation in Venezuela. Let's see several more images. Allow me to open up this situation because we're seeing both images of what's happening and also reactions from different international political leaders. On this occasion, well, the post made by the same person. Uncle, the modern leader's poster, at least in my case, that's not how it is. That episode. It's actually good he left. This morning I restated my support for international law. He disagrees with the United States intervention because it violates international law. He says the United Kingdom government will discuss the evolving situation with United States counterparts in the coming days. Meanwhile, we are seeking a safe and peaceful transition to a legitimate government that reflects the will of the Venezuelan people. I disagree with how it's done, but I agree with the substance. That's part of what the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom says. which is similar to what Maloney has said. What Macron has said, which he says correctly because it's no longer ripe. The way is what they don't agree on, and well, that's what they're questioning right now. Also, in another image that draws attention, it's what's more than just an image. It's a report in which they claim that Marco Rubio told the New York Times that he reserves his judgment about the denial by the Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. The United States will judge the interim authorities by their actions in the next days and weeks. He urges her to seize the historic chance to serve her country, as he said. We will see how the Vice President reacts, whether she takes a dictatorial approach or a democratic one. Well, that's how she will be judged in the future. It should be remembered that she does not have any accusation or charges from the United States. The same goes for Diosdado, Padrino, and Maduro themselves. And well, maybe it's a point they want to negotiate with. Although right now, apparently that possibility hasn't existed on their part. This yes or no to negotiate a transition to a government that truly represents the Venezuelan people. Let's listen and see if we notice anything, since it's hard to see much. But is this the image they're showing right now? The one in which Maduro would have been taken to New York escorted by part of the United States forces with a large number of federal agents. Those would be the federal agents guarding Maduro. Let's see if there are more images about this later on, but he would definitely have tremendous security right now. Let's also listen to another of the recordings. Isn't this the moment already published by several media outlets when the plane is landing in New York? This footage upon arriving in that state of the United States in the northeast of the United States, right? Also, well, here Diaz-Canel appears, the president and dictator from over there in Cuba, right? Well, he also says the following, let's listen. Attention. Well, there it is, the classic, right? The classic. He went out to get some sun, to be seen there with the people. Euphoric, he gave a speech with a trembling voice. They gathered a group of people in front of the United States Embassy and started making these kinds of comments. Let's keep listening. Venezuela? Well, there's the comment made by this person, right? Obviously, it was also expected. The water problem, the oil problem, the gasoline problem, and everything else are not surprising. It's gonna get much more complicated for Cuba. Also, well, obviously a response or a comment is expected about this. Ortega will surely know, right? We'll talk about it and see more about it later, right? In the meantime, it's at least part of what's expected, not something unusual, right? There haven't been any surprises in that sense, and we'll see what the real reaction will be. Not just the comments, but the real reaction from Alicia Rodriguez. That part won't be important. He says, listen to the following. No, that's a comment from Marco Rubio.
Nicolas Maduro had many opportunities to avoid this. He was given many very generous offers.
It's what Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, was saying. The United States gave Nicolas Maduro multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was offered multiple very generous offers. And instead he chose to act like a savage. He chose to play by the rules, and the result is what we saw tonight, says this blonde man. And well, that's also part of the statements from the United States Secretary of State, which, well, we have to remember. He is of Latino origin, his parents are of Cuban origin who fled from Cuba, and well, right now. And that's it, well, a key figure, basically the person responsible for all foreign affairs for the United States, right? That's why the comment he was going to make at this new press conference was important, which we're discussing live here for the whole community. That's how it is. It's not so bad. Let's check the comments. Abraham says Pepe is already sleeping a bit on shift, he says. Yes, before the night broadcast, even just 1 hour of sleep makes a difference for everyone. Right now I've been looking at several reports from different ESTE. Podcasters and media, and even the politicians have been looking extremely tired. Well, now that's just how it is. Look, Trump had a face of, well, I'd even say a bit of exhaustion, you know. Basically, they didn't sleep. And well, it is just like that, right? The thing is, it's about now, you know? Quick greetings to the comments before we move on to other topics, or rather to the court, right? We'll be back soon. Benedicto, how are you, Niebla? Thanks for being a member. Family. Should we support Pepe and Steve? Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the comment. Thank you so much for that. Like, greetings from Nibla or Nibla, Nie, Niblenla, Tundra, no, Niblenla. Is the name curious? Greetings. Patrick, how are you? Very good, right? Hi, Patrick says the photo might be in Guantanamo. How have you been, Patrick? Eliseo is very good. He's good. He's in New York. He's in New York. This one? Are you referring to the photo where he's in handcuffs, maybe? At what point did they take it? It's not clear. They supposedly said it was on the Iguayima ship, but the photo isn't from there. Well, that's just part of it. Doesn't it say C? It says Dictator of Cuba. Will you be the next one? It says Nico, right? It says Flores. The photo of Maduro looks like it was generated by AI. Well, that's been run through several filters to see if, because there are ways to detect it actually. AIs have ways to detect if something was made by AI. So far they say no, right? Plus, the White House published it, right? So it's at least the official photo they used. Doesn't it say long live democracy? I hope this is the rebirth of Venezuela and a new beginning for our Venezuelan brothers. Diana, how have you been lately? I know they've been messaging us, I've noticed. Yes, we've seen it on Telegram, in email, and well, if there are messages with voice, if you want to share your comment, etc. We play them on the night live show, right? So we don't make this too long. No, don't report anything else. In case we talk later about what's happening in Venezuela, what's happening in Iran, about what's happening in other parts of the world. So, well, I'll say goodbye for now. Let's not drag this out any longer. We'll be back in a little while with a lot more information, surely, because this is, well, moving forward, right? Thank you for joining us and greetings to the community. Leonardo, how have you been? Great to see you, Benedicto, and everyone. Elion, Carlos Pinto, Estepatri, who else is here? Francisco Arce, how have you been? Very good. Greetings to the whole community. See you in a little while. Until then, see you around. From 8:30, we don't interrupt your regular programming. Thank you for tuning in. Honestly, this is PP Live.
The truth is intense, pure. The unusual is real, pure. We analyze it here globally. Don't miss out. Tune into the PP channel live with PP controlling the signal and Astrid telling it like it is. Raw journalism, here it's respected. Turn on notifications, don't lose track until next time. Yes, sir.
We're taking roll call.
Subscribe.